the record, Ms. Pappas, you may cross-examine the witness, but before that, my attorney has an announcement.
Just wanted everyone to be cognizant of time. It is 1 p.m. Darcy previously, or sorry, Ms. Wassman, you previously represented, you can finish your case in chief by close today.
That was at the beginning of the day, and cross-examination is a little longer than I expected, but I'm hopeful by the end of the day.
Okay.
I mean, I could be in the position where I would have 1 or 2 more witnesses that I had planned to call, and I don't know if that protestant is planning on calling all of their witnesses. Seeing how we had 20, 30 witnesses and they have 5. I don't know. I'm hopeful, still hopeful.
I just want to remind all parties that we do have a specific allocation of time. We do only have 3 days here. We have room limitations, people's schedules and everything else. So I just want to make sure that everyone's mindful of the time that we do have and make sure that we're moving diligently and quickly through the proceedings, obviously thoroughly, but please do keep those in mind. Considering we do have, just wanted to say we left with about witness 18 so far in the proceeding. We have there was about 70 listed by the applicants. And we only have the space for the 1.5 more days. Do we feel comfortable getting through that, or is there anything else that the parties would propose at this point to make sure that we get through everything?
Since we have all day tomorrow, if we were to finish with, I know that would be out of order and there's no way to know, but if the protestants' witnesses were to finish by noon or 2 o'clock, if there were time, I don't suppose I would be allowed to call some additional witnesses.
I would object to that. It's hard to prepare my case when I don't have the case in chief fully done.
Sure. Does the protestant need all day for their witnesses?
Do you need all day for your witnesses?
Yes, with the rate things are going, I think we will take the day with our witnesses.
Well, if we could just press on.
Let's press on then, and let Commissioner Pinochi take it from there. Just wanted to make sure that was reminded at this point.
Okay, Ms. Pappas, you open for cross-examination of this witness.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinochi. Hi, Mr. Wood. Good afternoon. I wanted to clarify a few things from your previous testimony. You live in Baker?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have garbage service from the town of Baker?
Yes.
Have you ever used services from G&G?
I have tried. 8 years. I was doing a job out at Lincoln City Starts, and I called to get a roll-off container, and I never did get it delivered.
When was that?
March of this year.
Okay. Have you ever used a roll-off from G&G previously?
No.
You work in construction
Yes.
currently? And do you typically use roll-off containers?
No.
What do you typically do?
I have my own.
Sorry, your question was.
Go ahead. I don't hear it anymore.
I have my own dump box.
And do you haul that yourself to the landfill?
Yes.
And is the landfill Coral Creek?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that open to anyone who brings garbage or waste there?
Yes.
So anyone can self-haul?
Haul themselves, yes.
And you stated you don't recall when you went to work for G&G, is that correct?
Not the first time, no.
And when you say the first time, have you worked for G&G more than once?
Yes,
Okay, when did you leave the first time?
it was in January of 2016.
Okay, so would that put you as working there for about a year, that first time?
Approximately, I would say around there,
Okay. And when you left
2 years, 2000, yeah, so.
a year or two?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you left the first time, did you quit?
Yes, I had
Why did you have to?
to. I ended up going to prison.
What did you go to prison for?
Objection, Your Honor. Or, Commissioner, I would object that, it's not relevant.
Substantial.
You left to go to prison in January 2016, you said, correct?
Yes,
And did you give notice when you left?
they know. I was probably going to prison.
And you went back to work at G&G at some point thereafter?
Yes, shortly after I got out of prison,
Okay, when would that have been?
March of 2019.
Had you worked in the garbage business before working for G&G?
No, I had not.
Did you have a CDL when you went to work for G&G?
Yes,
Do you still have a CDL today?
yes,
Have you worked in the garbage industry since you left G&G?
no.
When you left G&G the second time, why did you leave?
I started my own construction business.
So you left to work for yourself?
Yes,
And have you worked for yourself since that time?
yes,
And did you give notice when you quit the second time?
yes, I did.
Just a normal leaving the company?
Yes.
Okay. What was your job experience before working at G&G?
I drove truck for ambulance.
What kind of truck would you drive?
Semi, Kenworth.
How long did you do that?
A little over a year there.
Why'd you leave that job?
I got fired.
Oh, okay. Why were you let go, do you know?
Conflict with the dispatcher. Shortly
Okay.
thereafter, he got fired.
Prior to that year and a half, did you have work in, that required a CDL prior to that?
Yes,
What did you do then?
I worked for 48 Well Service, driving water truck for them.
How long did you do that?
About a year there.
And why'd you leave that job?
I started working 80, 90 hours a week.
And so before 4Js, did you work in heavy equipment as well?
I worked for Baker Hughes.
Baker Hughes?
Yes.
And what did you do for Baker Hughes?
Run a spool truck for him, working on submersible wells.
And how long did you do that job?
For 2 years,
And why did you leave that job?
because I was putting in 90 hours a week.
How long have you had a CDL?
Since I was 18.
And is it fair to say you've worked in jobs using that CDL since then?
Yes,
During both times you worked for G&G, when you were driving a truck, were you responsible for pre-check and post-check
Yes,
daily?
yes.
And how did you log that?
We had a spot on our time card, I believe it was.
Is that electronic or paper?
It was paper,
Paper that whole time?
yes.
Okay. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, you mentioned a failed DOT inspection. Was that an annual inspection?
No,
What was that?
I was going to Beach, North Dakota to pick up a container and the scale was open, so I pulled in there. And they had a DOT inspection check,
So that was a roadside inspection?
yes,
During the time you were at G&G, did any of their trucks fail an annual DOT inspection?
yes.
When?
Specific dates, I don't remember.
What truck?
I know the red Kenworth did. But here they are. Red Kenworth that I drove. Failed.
In response to those field inspections, what did G&G do?
They got them repaired so we could get them back on the road and get our DOT inspection sticker on.
Going back to the roadside inspection that you mentioned in your prior testimony, did G&G fix the issues after the inspection?
Yes, but there were many issues with the truck that were brought up that I got told, just drive, we need to get these loads up, basically.
But they fixed the issues that were brought out by the DOT inspection, correct?
Yeah, at that time.
And they
have
didn't get a fine,
choice.
did they?
Excuse me,
They didn't get a fine, did they?
no.
Ms. Wassman asked you early in your testimony about how many trucks G&G had when you started working for them. And you named two of them. You called them Unit 9 and Unit 10. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Those were the garbage route trucks, weren't they?
correct,
And G&G had additional trucks, didn't they?
yes.
Okay, and you didn't discuss those in your testimony.
I'm about the garbage trucks, so
Okay. Did G&G have two garbage trucks, route trucks, during the entirety of the time you worked for them?
no, the first time they only had one. And the second time they had purchased it, prior to me.
So when you said they had Unit 9 and Unit 10, that wasn't when you started working for them?
Not the first time, no,
Okay.
second time,
What units did they have when you started working for them?
I believe it was Unit 9.
You mentioned that you went to the city of Baker to get parts at one point. You remember
Yes,
that? Are the garbage truck parts available at your typical Napa?
no,
Do they take a while to get?
yes, if we could get authorization to get them,
But when you order them, does it take a day to get them?
we could usually get them in 2 to 3 days. Spokane or Seattle,
Okay, so they have to be shipped in from a distance.
yes,
Okay. During the time you worked for G&G, did the town of Baker ever use G&G's truck?
no,
How long have you lived in Baker?
well, that basically,
Have you ever known the town of Baker to use G&G's truck?
not to my knowledge, no.
Do you have any knowledge of G&G's services after 2021?
Yeah, stayed in contact with my coworker,
Who's that?
Corey Upton.
But you didn't work on any trucks, didn't do any inspections of any trucks after 2021, did you?
No.
Okay. So you don't have any knowledge of any inspections on any trucks for the last 3 years? You mentioned that G&G didn't provide some pants, I believe you said you needed on the job.
Yes, the oil field companies require you to wear F-bar clothing, and all we were provided was a shirt. I had my own F-bars from working in the oil field previously.
Okay, so you didn't incur any additional expense for that?
No.
Did you ask G&G to provide you with pants?
I brought it up to date early.
Did you work overtime when you worked for G&G?
Yes,
How often?
I suppose once every couple weeks. Didn't have much choice.
Did you get approval when you needed to work overtime?
Oh, I need to get these jobs done.
I believe your testimony earlier was that you had to ask for approval if you wanted to work overtime.
Guess I don't recall that.
You mentioned that you had lots of flat tires on G&G's trucks.
Yes,
How long did tires last in this area in your experience?
we run mainly recaps. We'd have a lot of caps come off. Running down gravel roads, tires. Get rock check, but we'd usually run them till they were totally gone.
Gravel's hard on tires.
Yes,
You get punctures at the landfill.
oh yes,
Landfill's hard on tires.
Yep.
Tires have to be replaced pretty often.
yeah, I would say yes.
You said when you left G&G, you were the manager.
No, that was first time I went.
The first time you went to work there, you were manager?
Yes,
Okay, and the second time you came back as a driver?
yes,
Okay. While you were a manager, were you in charge of booking jobs?
that came from dispatch.
Okay. Dispatch did all the scheduling?
Yes,
Okay. Did you have interactions with dispatch?
oh yes,
Could you tell dispatch if you couldn't complete a job?
yes.
What kind of system did you use for marking your jobs as complete or for being assigned jobs?
Oh, we had an app on our phone. We check in the morning and tell us what clients we needed for service.
Okay, and then you'd mark them off as you got them done?
Yes,
And if you didn't feel you could complete the job in a day, could you contact dispatch?
if we were able to. Sometimes we didn't get into it. Sometimes we were not the sales.
If you didn't get the jobs completed in the day, what was the procedure?
Pick it up where you left off in the morning.
Okay. And is this app a two-way system? Does dispatch see how many jobs you have left to complete at the end of the day?
Yes,
So are they placing your jobs for the next day based on what they see on there?
yes, they just had to.
Okay. Going back to the roadside DOT inspection, did you inform G of the slack adjuster problem prior to the DOT inspection or after the DOT inspection?
Prior,
Okay, and it got fixed after that inspection?
yes.
Thank you for your time, nothing further.
Let's go to commissioner questions. Commissioner Vukacek, any questions?
No questions.
All right, I have a question too. I was a little concerned about the tie rods falling off the truck because that should be flagged long before that happened. Were you ever, where you went to an alignment shop and said, hey, look, the tie rod's gotta get replaced, and then you were told not to replace them? Is there a time you were driving that truck and you knew it was not safe?
That wasn't me, that was Gloria.
But my question is to you, was there a time you were driving the truck and you knew it wasn't safe? Was there a time you were driving the truck where someone said, hey, you got something that needs to be replaced? You knew it wasn't safe, but it was driven anyway.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
The truck I was running had a seal leak on the rear end. And we were busy. And I called to get approval to get it fixed. And they said, just watch the oil in the rear end. Keep driving it. And I said, it's, $120 fix is gonna lead into a $14,000 rear end, which it did happen. Right.
Let's talk about steer tires. The tires on the front of the truck are the most important because you steer with them, and if you have a blowout, that can really cause an accident. So you try to use those older tires in the back of the rig where you have duals. Wear them out there, especially if you have one bad tire next to a better tire. They must have known that the steer tires have to be in really good shape. Was there a time where they ignored steer tires to be in good shape while you were driving?
There were a few times tires would come off. There were bad vibrations in them.
Did you advise them to move them to the back and give me a,
Well, we couldn't because we ran like a super single on the steer tires that were much bigger than our old tires on the rear.
different size tire? All right, back to driving the truck when you knew it wasn't safe. Besides the rear seal, was there anything else you can think of?
Brakes, seals being out on the axles where you're leaking grease in on your brakes. Clutch issues.
As a driver, you're in a residential area picking up garbage. We have children running in front of the truck. We have, people looking at dump trucks, they don't give it the proper respect. So it's moving pretty slow, so I'll drive in front of it. Was there ever a time you said, hey, this truck isn't safe? I mean, the brakes have got to work. I can't drive the truck like this. Have you confronted them on that issue?
Yes, I did.
What was the answer?
We'll get to it. Try to get it in the shop, get it fixed, but it usually took quite a while. Until we got the maintenance guy that came down from Washington City. But it was usually, a couple days out before he was able to come down. Do anything.
You work with other drivers. Did you hear another driver complain about his truck not being safe? Look, we got to fix an issue.
Yes.
What was the answer? Do you remember a particular issue?
Well, I know like the red Kenworth, the steering column was loose. You could take it and move it side to side, a couple inches each way, frontward to sideways and backwards.
Did they fix that?
Not to my knowledge, never got fixed.
When the city would let you use their truck, did G&G reimburse them for the cost, or did the taxpayers cover that cost when you use that truck?
I believe the taxpayers covered that. That would be my guess. To my knowledge, never got it. I didn't start.
Thank you, sir. No more questions. All right, so Ms. Pappas, would you like to redirect?
Very briefly.
Okay.
Can you clarify your testimony on overtime? I believe that I had asked you if you were allowed to get overtime. I believe your answer to me was yes at times, but it was always questioned. Is that your correct phrasing of your answer?
Yes,
So you didn't have to get pre-approval, it was just questioned after you incurred overtime?
right.
Would you have stayed employed longer than 2021 if the conditions were different?
Yes,
And Ms. Pappas asked you if you had an opportunity to inspect G&G's trucks since you quit in 2021, and you answered that you had not.
No.
Had you had an occasion to see a questionable G&G truck after you quit that Corey was either driving or aware of?
yes, I did. I was in Linda at the truck stop and they had a garbage truck that was the dump body on it or the can on it. It was chained down with boomers. It wasn't.
I'm gonna object to this testimony. He's testifying to a Glendive truck that would be outside the scope of the what's being sought here. Glendive's not within the territory being sought.
I believe he is testifying to a G&G garbage truck. And so this is the company in question.
This truck didn't have anything to do with this operation here. They're beyond the scope of my cross for one, and two, it didn't have anything to do with this, well, it didn't have anything to do with this operation. It wasn't necessarily even in service. There's a whole lot of questions that wouldn't be answered if this testimony goes on.
It's G&G's truck. Overruled, it's G&G's truck.
So can you tell me where you saw the truck?
It was at the Trail Star truck stop.
And who was the owner of the truck stop?
Trail Star truck stop.
And how could you tell it was a G&G truck?
It had the logo on the door.
And I guess just describe the truck.
It's just your basic garbage truck. It had to, instead of having grabber arms on it, you had to manually dump the cans in there.
And so what was odd about it?
Seeing the boomers holding the dump or the can down on the frame.
And how would it normally be attached?
Hold it.
Okay, no further questions.
Would you like to temporarily excuse this witness or permanent?
Temporarily, please.
Okay, sir, you're excused.
So I'll give you a call if I need it.
Swanson, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. I would call Dean Wang. I didn't see you standing there.
I'm pretty
I know.
Sir, I need you to raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay. The guys that have been in here, I'd love to build a football team with. You may be seated. Your witness, Mr. Wasm. Miss Wasm.
Good afternoon. Could you state your name for the commission?
Dean Wang, W-A-N-G,
And where do you live?
Baker, Montana.
How long have you lived in Baker?
50 years.
What is your occupation?
Banker,
And at what bank would that be?
Bank of Baker,
And what is your, how long have you been in that occupation?
30 years.
Do you hold a title within the company?
I've worked in the loan department and I'm president and CEO of the bank.
Do you know Fred Varner?
Yes,
How do you know him?
casually, personally, my entire life, and professionally because they have a business here in town.
Are you familiar with Fred's financial condition?
Yes,
Can you vouch whether he has a favorable financial condition?
yes, favorable, yes.
Are you familiar with his loan history?
Any, something in writing from Fred or something allowing me to talk in detail about confidential banking relationship, I guess.
Sure. So, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm handing Mr. Wang what has been marked as Exhibit 8. Do you recognize that document?
Yes,
And what do you recognize that to be?
it's a, I can read it.
Sure.
From me to the Public Service Commission, it says Southeast Garbage LLC has the wherewithal to fund 1 million in operating expenses should the need arise. Respectfully, Dean, my president.
And I believe that's already, just to double check, that's already been admitted into the record as
Yes,
defendants or
makes
protestants. Okay, thank you. And is that still your opinion as you sit here today?
Yes,
Do you know what type of business person Fred is?
well, I don't know exactly what they do on a daily basis. I know they've been at it a long time. They are personally and professionally fastidious and immaculate, like me, except different. I would be a polar opposite of, if my vehicles are a polar opposite of their vehicles with regard to cleanliness and maintenance. Deal with many of their employees on a personal and professional level. They have a good reputation in town.
Okay.
Again, both personally and professionally.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Ms. Pappas, you may be able to cross-examine this witness.
Thank you, Commissioner Panucci. And Mr. Wang. Do you live in Baker itself or outside of town?
Outside of town,
And do you have garbage service?
yes,
Is it with G&G?
yes,
The letter that you've been given in front of you, that you wrote this letter, correct?
yes.
It's been characterized as a letter of credit. Is that what you would characterize it as in the banking industry?
No, I would not call this a letter of credit. Typically, a letter of credit is tied into a specific loan that would be drawn upon in the event of non-performance.
Is a letter of credit, scratch that. Does somebody pay typically for a letter of credit
Sometimes, yes.
based on the amount of credit extended?
Often 1% of the amount.
Okay. And you weren't asked to do that here, were you?
No,
And is a letter of credit a term of art in the banking industry?
a term,
A term of art? Is it a term that does it have a formal meaning in the banking industry?
at the Bank of Baker, yes, we would say a letter of credit again is tied into typically a performance bond, typically a construction project, and it's the letter of credit would only be exercised upon in the event of typically non-performance.
Is it a guarantee of the funds?
I don't know, the loan is in place. It's not like the bank could withhold the funds if the person whose project wasn't properly completed submitted a request for funds against the letter of credit, we would, upon due diligence, we would advance the funds. I suppose we're splitting hairs over the term guarantee.
Certainly, and I am not in the banking industry, so I appreciate that. But the long and short of it is, this document that you wrote is not a letter of credit.
No, not how I would define it.
Okay. What does it mean that Southeast Garbage LLC has the wherewithal to fund $1 million? What's wherewithal mean there?
In the broad sense, they would have the ability to either fund it themselves or borrow the money to do it should the need arise.
And when you say they, do you
Oh.
know that Southeast Garbage LLC has funds in place?
I do not, but based on the principles involved, they do.
Okay, so your letter is based on that the principals, and do you understand that to be Chad Berry and Fred Varner?
Yes,
That the principals have funding or ability to get funding,
yes.
not that Southeast Garbage LLC.
No, we do not have an account with Southeast Garbage LLC at this time.
If you make a loan to an LLC, do you typically require personal guarantees of the members of that LLC?
Always.
Do you know what Southeast Garbage LLC is looking to acquire the $1 million for?
No.
Have you discussed terms of any loan with the Varners?
No, they did not request a loan.
I will represent to you that the Varners have stated in response to data requests that it's their intention to acquire 4 trucks and some garbage containers, roll-off containers, and some large tubs similar to what you see around town. That kind of equipment. What kind of terms does the Bank of Baker offer for that type of loan?
Typically, commercial loans would be 3 to 5 years, typically on a monthly payment, sometimes quarterly, seldom annually, but occasionally.
What kind of interest rates are you looking at these days?
Right now, our walk-in off the street, run-of-the-mill rate is 8.2% commercial and ag, and then we would work our way down from there based on financial strength, previous history, character.
How much lower could you walk your way down?
Oh, probably into the low 7s, maybe 6.9, something like that.
Now, when you made this statement, the letter that's in front of you, you didn't review any business plan submitted by Southeast Garbage, did you?
No,
If Southeast Garbage was to apply for $1 million loan from the bank, would you require a business plan?
yes,
Would you require that Southeast Garbage put some of its principal's money into play, or would you be willing to loan 100% of the startup costs for a LLC?
in this specific instance,
Sure.
yes, we would loan them,
100%?
yes.
Mr. Varner and I discussed earlier that the equipment that they stated in their data requests, they plan to acquire was about 1.35 million. That's over the $1 million in your letter. Would you loan them 1.35 million?
Yes,
And that would be on these same terms that we've been discussing, 3 to 5 years, somewhere from 6.9 to 8.2% interest?
yes.
On a over $1 million loan, in addition to personal guarantees, are you going to require any other guarantees?
Guarantees, not typically, no, we require the principals of the entity. But as far as other guarantees, not typically, no.
If you're loaning money on vehicles, in this case, are you going to require the bank's name on the vehicles?
Well, in a normal, usual loan situation, we like to see 25% equity and then we would take a lien on the collateral. In this particular instance, based on the principles involved, we would not.
And so you wouldn't require any lien on any collateral for this amount of loan?
Probably not.
As long as they agreed to this 3 to 5 year turnaround at somewhere between 6.9 and 8.2% interest.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this is not to say that they need a loan. Don't misconstrue my statements that they would need a loan to do this. I've not said that.
And I'm going on what they said in data responses, that they plan to fund this with a loan from you.
Okay, that's fine.
So. Are there any fees associated with the loan of this amount?
No. And that's all. We don't charge fees on ag or commercial loans. That's to any customer.
Okay. So going with your longest term of 5 years and the lowest rate you told me of 6.9%. I'm coming up with or using 7% for a little bit rounder number, 1.35 million loan. I'm coming up with a monthly payment of $26,731.62. Does that sound accurate to you?
I'll have to take your word for it. I apologize, I'm not prepared.
Okay. You could run an amortization calculator and that's how you would come up with the numbers.
Yes, I have the same contraption you have.
Okay. You have no reason to think that's incorrect. Okay. Nothing further. Thank you for your time.
We'll go to commissioner questions. Miss Penny Bukacek, Commissioner, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Sir, I have only one. You might be able to answer it, maybe not. Mr. Varner wanted $2 million. Would you write the same letter?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, any redirect, Ms. Wasserman?
No,
No, I'll wait,
No regrets. Thank you.
because I asked a question. All right, do you have any redirect?
no, thank you.
All right, you want to permanently excuse this witness?
I think he can be permanently excused.
Sir, you're excused. Thank you.
Oh. Makes Chase down.
Sure. Thank you. Back to you, Victoria.
Okay, you may call it.
Thank you. I would call Kevin Braun.
Kevin, I need you to raise your right hand. Or to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may be so seated. Ms. Wasman, you're welcome.
Thank you. Could you state your name for the commission?
Kevin Ron,
What is your current occupation?
I am a current Falmouth County Commissioner.
Where do you currently live?
5 miles east of Baker, Highway 12,
How long have you lived there?
all my life.
Do you use a garbage service out where you live?
We do not.
And you said you were a Fallon County Commissioner?
I am.
Did Fallon County have a need for garbage service?
We did.
And what was the need?
We had a container site that was used by the taxpayers on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Taxpayer could deliver garbage for free to the site. And then G&G would pick up the containers and haul them to the county line. Also, we had tubs at the fairgrounds, gun range. We had a container in the road shop, and then we had tubs at county-owned parks and facilities.
And how long was G&G your service provider?
So I've been a commissioner for almost 4 years. They were there when I got elected. I don't know the exact date, but it's been a while. They started service with them.
During your time as a commissioner, did you ever experience problems with the service?
There was times that the containers from the container site weren't getting dumped and we'd have to make a call. But the big problem was 2 years ago at fair time when garbages were full, dispatch was called, and we were informed that nobody would come to empty anything from fair. Dispatch, I believe, was out of Dickinson at the time.
And that was G&G's dispatch that you're referring to?
Yeah.
Did they give you a reason?
What was relayed to me was that there was nobody to run the truck and empty the garbages.
Are those the tubs you're talking about at the fairgrounds, gun range, road shop, and parks? They're the black household.
We had a roll-off container at the road shop. We had 300 gallon or whatever they're called, plastic containers. We had roll-offs at the container site.
And were those all picked up as needed, or were any of those on the schedule?
They were on a schedule. The container site was on a schedule. Especially over fair, we had a schedule for it to be dumped every day. Of course, it's fair. Things fill up pretty fast.
And that was prearranged and
Yeah.
kind of long-standing?
Yeah.
And did it create any problems?
Put us in a bind with fair. We had to scramble to figure out a way to get them dumped, which we did.
And what did the county do to get them dumped?
We contacted the city, made a deal with the city of Baker and asked them to come dump the dumpsters and then the roll-offs that we were using. We just had to figure a way to leave them alone.
Did the county terminate their service with G&G?
So we did. It was a substantial amount that we were paying monthly for their services. It it didn't take long to figure out after this incident to sit down with pen and paper that we could pretty quickly pay for our own containers, our own rollouts, our own truck. And which we did, and it's worked really well. And it is a savings to the taxpayer. A tremendous savings.
When did you terminate service with G&G? When did the county?
It would have been the fall of 22, I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but it's sometime in 22, I believe.
Can I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm handing Commissioner Braun has at the top of it an interlocal agreement. I don't have it marked, sorry.
Is this an exhibit?
It is not, it's just to refresh his memory.
Sure. So this is the interlocal agreement between the city of Baker. Well, the county bought a roll-off truck and containers. We did not want to buy a dumpster. So we did an interlocal agreement with the city of Baker to pick up the dumpsters. We currently have dumpsters at the fairgrounds in all of our city parks and softball complex. During fair, we take roll-offs to the fairgrounds and remove the dumpsters so everybody uses the roll-off containers, easier to pick up and move. At the gun range, we put a permanent dumpster. At the road shop, we put or not a dumpster, we call it a container, and at the road shop, we put a permanent container. And then we bought containers, like I said, for the container site for the taxpayers of Free. We have 5 or 6 containers that we bought to sit out there.
Okay, so if I understand what your testimony is that the roll-off containers were done in maybe 22.
Yes, we had ordered them in August of 22. They did not show up. I believe it was July of 23. It took that long. Of course, we were just coming out of COVID and things were a little slow.
And so then in what year did you terminate your service with G&G?
So with this agreement, it would have had to have been 23.
Okay.
They're in the local agreement with the city.
Did you have any other complaints about G&G's service?
I did not.
I don't have any additional questions.
Ms. Pappas, you're open for cross-examination.
Thank you, Commissioner Panucci. Good afternoon, Commissioner Braun.
Hello.
Make sure I understand your testimony. Allen County ran the numbers and decided it was cheaper to self-haul garbage than to contract with G&G.
Yeah, we have employees at the landfill that take care of the container site anyway. By running the numbers and using them employees to run the hook truck, it just made sense. Yeah, the amount of money that was being spent on G&G, and then with what happened at Fair, which can't happen. I mean, it can't. No, I mean, if somebody needs to call somebody and say, this is what's gonna happen, but that didn't happen. So with that happening and running the numbers and trying to save taxpayer dollars, we switched to our own containers and hook truck.
So you have all your own equipment now,
We do.
and you said, I believe, happy with the service.
We are.
And so are you looking for another service provider at this juncture?
We are not.
And just to clarify, this incident at the fair was 2 years ago, correct?
I believe so.
So that would put us in
22,
2022,
somewhere in there.
and you testified that you ordered roll-offs around that time
It was after that fair sometime in September, I believe.
And it took 11 months to get them.
It did. It was, yeah.
It's a long lead time on those containers at the
Yeah.
moment. And I believe you testified that you don't use a garbage service for your personal household waste currently.
Just can't seem to get anybody used to big.
Do you self-haul?
I do.
Ms. Wasmond is also the county attorney, is that correct?
She is.
Do you recall any meetings with her in 2023 where she advised the commission to search for another private contractor?
What I do recall is the interlocal agreement with the city and how to proceed with that to maybe get our plastic dumpsters picked up.
Do you recall if the county made any requests of Miles City Sanitation?
We did not.
Thank you very much for your time. I have nothing further.
Go to commissioner questions. Commissioner Lukacek, any questions?
None, sir.
And I have no questions. Would you like to, withdraw?
Very briefly, if I could. Do you know whether, when you called for service at the fairgrounds, when the containers weren't picked up, did G&G offer to try to help cover it, do anything else for you to get that picked up?
I'm going to object that that's beyond the scope of cross and inappropriate for return.
Substantial.
So I didn't have an opportunity to say anything in regard to that objection, but if I can.
Sorry, excuse us. Go ahead.
Can I believe she was exactly asking questions about the fair incident and when they ordered roll-offs in response to the fair incident.
The only question I asked with regard to the fair incident was that it happened 2 years ago and you ordered roll-offs thereafter it.
We'll still.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Braun, can you say whether you would have evaluated the service that you were using had you not been dissatisfied with the service?
Objection beyond the scope of the cross.
So
Feel free for
what Ms.
response.
Papez had asked, and my question pertains to, is that the reason they switched service was because they crunched the numbers. So I'm saying, why did you crunch the numbers?
Repeat the question that was asked just now.
No, I cannot. I can't remember.
Darcy, could you repeat the question that was asked?
We find it here. Commissioner Braun, can you say whether you would have evaluated the service that you were receiving had you not been dissatisfied with the service?
If I may respond to Ms. Mossman.
If you need to put your hand down. I'm sorry.
Thank you. The only question I asked was for confirmation of what he had said in his direct that he crunched the numbers.
We're gonna sustain it.
I don't have any additional questions.
Would you like to permanently excuse this witness?
Permanently.
Okay, sir, you may go. Thank you.
Thank you.
for the next witness.
Call Corey Efta.
Corey, I need you to raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do swear. Thank you. You can see it. Let's do the witness.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Could you state your name for the commission?
Corey Lee Efta. I sent my documents, it's just CF.
And where do you live?
I currently live in Plevna, Montana.
How long have you lived there?
Approximately 2 years. Prior to that, I lived at 721 2nd Street Southwest.
And is that in Baker?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you lived in the Baker area?
Roughly 18 years. Basically most.
And I apologize, my short-term memory is not serving me. Where do you currently work?
D&M Solutions.
How long have you worked for DNM?
Let's see. 5 months.
And where were you previously employed?
G&G.
What was your occupation or position with G&G?
I started off as a hook truck driver, was trained by Mr. Bob Wood. Then I was reintroduced to the side load garbage truck, which I learned how to drive that through the employment of the city. And in that process, I was also trained to do porta potties.
Was that through your work with the city or through?
Through
G&G?
G&G, the porta potties was through G&G.
When did you begin employment with G&G?
Approximately 5 years ago, which would have been, I think here, August, I think-ish. 5 years this year.
What was your rate of pay when you started?
25.
What do you mean by that?
I guess I was supposed to start off at 25, and as secretary, put it in for 25. And since all the paperwork got signed, it couldn't be changed.
And how was that brought to your attention?
At some point in time later, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and I told him what I was getting paid. He's like, well, you shouldn't be making as much, because he was there longer, so, you know, but that's what I was at. I was at 25, so I wasn't going to complain.
Who was your supervisor when you were first hired?
The late James DeSanko. Otherwise, I answered to Bob Wood.
Which one of the, or who gave you direction?
To start off for the training was Bob Wood, but for like everything else was the higher ups that came from James DeSanko.
Where was he located?
And Dickinson. And then dispatch came from Dickinson through, they provided us phones.
Were you provided with equipment to do your job?
I was, when I started, I was in, unit 20, which was a red Kenworth. I liked it better because it had no issues pulling up the compactors at a beach, which are notoriously heavy. I pulled one container that was almost 70,000 truck and container. With that truck, didn't seem to have any issues.
What other trucks did
The
they have?
unit 20, I believe it is a blue Kenworth, that had issues trying to pull up a said beach container because it was so heavy.
And I believe, can I just clarify, you had said unit 20 was the red Kenworth and then unit 20 was the blue. Do
Let's
you
see,
recall?
unit 12 was the red one, unit 20 is the blue one. And unit 14 is the gray one.
And were there any issues with the gray truck?
Yeah, from even when, before, when Bob started there, then he went away and then came back, he was working there again. And from that time, it had, the front cover always did leak, and then when he went away, for however long, he came back, it was still leaking. And when Gary Ergens got hired, it was, the front cover was still leaking.
Was it reported?
Oh, yes.
How was it reported?
Through the proper channels, through James, then Gary got a hold of James, James was still living, then they got a hold of Sean Makowitz. And I believe to this day, it's probably still leaking.
Do you have personal knowledge, whether it was leaking at the time that you ended employment?
Yes, it was, when I ended, it was still leaking,
And when did you end your employment?
in February of this year.
Do you recall the exact date?
It was somewhere around the 12th.
And how did did you end your employment?
I put in my 2 weeks notice, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was all gung ho, gonna fill out my 2 weeks, you know, best of my ability, and because I enjoyed my customers, whoever I worked for, went seen or whatever I was doing, I enjoyed, you know, talking to her for a smidge bit, you know, getting my job done, and then come a Friday, I don't remember which Friday it was, they come and said, you don't have to worry about finishing out your employment here, will pay you for the total of 2 weeks. And on that Friday, I was on my way to go down to Ecolata to finish that load, to grab that load. And when they told me that, I was like, well, okay, I mean, I haven't trained anybody to the way things work here. Things work here a little bit differently than they do elsewhere. And I got to know the people, and so I could about tell you, you know, garbage wise, who had kids who usually had a lot of garbage, who didn't. I can tell you one old man in particular, it was just him, it would have taken him a month to maybe fill his garbage can halfway. You get to know things like that. Developed a pretty good rapport with my customers and whatnot. They all look forward to seeing me. I go by the schools, the kids would do this number, And I'd honk at them, and it was, everybody who drives a truck should know makes everybody's day.
So were you allowed to finish out your 2 weeks?
No, I was not. I only got about a week into it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I wanted to finish off my 2 weeks just because I think that's the professional thing to do.
Sure. Can you tell us, about the trucks? Were there, so they had the gray, the blue, the red, and then did they have any other trucks
They
for
had
this
the
area?
two garbage trucks which have sidearms. Unit 9 was the older one. I believe that came with the purchase from the Griffiths. And then a little later on, they got Unit 10, which was a newer one. Unit 9 had, air over hydraulic controls. The Unit 10 had electric over hydraulic controls and
Just a quick reminder to everyone in the room, can we make sure that all phones are turned off or muted at this time? There's just been a few interruptions throughout the day today. Just to serve as a reminder, thank you.
And when you started, did they already have Unit 10? or
yeah, they had Unit 10 and Unit 9.
When you started?
Yes, and since I didn't have a whole lot of experience on Unit 9, Bob would kind of work me into that. The city had one, but didn't run it because of how particular it kind of was. And Unit 9 tends to be the same as the city's, kind of had its own little quirks, as most vehicles do.
Were the vehicles regularly maintained?
Yes, when I first started, we were allowed to change our own oil. And shortly thereafter, they moved it over to rolling rubber.
And was there a schedule?
So many miles or so many hours. Most of the time I tried to make sure I got it there, because then if they seen anything wrong that I had missed during my trip, because they have a tour they can do the steering and that kind of stuff. They can tell if that stuff is out where they can pry on it or whatever.
Did they ever bring any issues to your attention?
Yes, they brought up to the fact that Unit 12, the red one, needed kingpins, and I got the estimate, which was $2,000, and it never got fixed. And it happened to be that the one day the blue truck, Unit 20, was in the shop, and I needed to make a few runs. And on my last run of the day, I went over a cattle guard, there was a pop, I ended up in the ditch, and the rest of that is.
And you believe that was
Yes.
contributed?
Yes,
To the accident.
I know the ambulance crew and them were all real surprised that I had not rolled that truck. Prior to this, I was over 1 million miles accident free, and I have been basically in every single major US city in the United States, long hauling, except for Alaska, Maine, and Hawaii. So I have been basically in every major city.
And when the shop had suggested that it needed kingpins, did you pass that information along?
I
or-
did, and I sent that up the chain.
And who would that have been at the time?
It would have been Sean Makowitz, I believe. I think Mr. Senka was gone by then. Might have been alive, okay, he was alive, excuse me. And then ultimately, basically to Michael Desmond, any purchases over $500, he had to approve.
So what happened, when was that incident?
About 2 years ago. I wanna say in July, but I could be mistaken. Probably have that in your computer.
What happened to that truck?
I subsequently went off the road, managed to keep it upright. I think I went in controlling it, because I couldn't seem to get her to stop. I went probably about a quarter, half mile-ish, something like that. Till I finally did get it to stop.
Was the truck wrecked?
Yes, it was.
Did it get fixed?
No.
So where did the truck go?
It was in our yard for a while, then I think it went to not Glenda, but Dickinson. And from there, I have no idea.
So it's not been put back in service in Baker? So in the route that you, is there a typical route that you
Yes.
do?
Garbage route, I usually start at the C&D yards. And then I'd go over to 4J.
Can I just stop you for a second? How many routes are there?
Well, on the short week, and then there's the long week.
Okay.
The long week includes the stuff from the short week, but the long route goes out to west of town, north of town, and northeast town a little bit.
And then in addition to those regular routes, you would do roll-off collection?
Yep, rough, yep.
And who would set your pickup schedule?
It was usually they'd send it, they'd give a list,
Where did that,
what needed to be picked up that day. What I usually tried to do, before they implemented it, I usually tried to get the furthest away, like say Beach, Weevil. I would try to go to Weevil or Beaches, since it was the furthest, and then go to the next longest one, because it's a lot easier to get, the ones far off, than try to go to them at the end of the day, because our landfill was only open till 3:30, which irritated me, because could have gotten a lot more done if they were open to 5. And our landfill is the only landfill that does not stay open to 5.
and so who establishes what order you would pick up your roll-off containers versus regular route?
Before we did, and then they wanted us to do it, they wanted to do it, but not being familiar with the area, I can tell you, here in Eclac is 3 hours, there and back, Beach is 3.5, 4, Weevil is 3, Plevna is roughly 1.5 hours, 2-ish.
And so was dispatch from Dickinson giving you your
Yes,
routes and information?
yes. Though they never did the route.
Correct. When you were hired, how many drivers served this area?
When I was hired, there was just me and Bob Wood.
And when you quit, how many drivers were there?
It was just basically me.
And how long was it just you?
Let's see, Bob Wood quit. There's me for quite a while, and then they hired Gary Ergens. He liked to only work till like 3 or 4 o'clock, get his 8 hours and be done. And then after he left, then it was just me again.
Do you know when Gary,
I do not remember when he quit.
Do you know how long he worked?
Roughly about 1.5 years-ish.
How far did you travel? You mentioned Eagle and Beach. Was that the extent of your travel area?
Oh, no, I've had to help. I'd go up to, when they needed a roll off, I went up to Circle. I've been down to Rapid City, South Dakota, up around Belfouche, Deadwood, when they needed extra help. And that's just roll off. When it was the garbage route time, I went by myself up to the Wolf Point route. I've done a Circle by myself. Gone up by Kinsey.
And who covered this Wevo, Fallon, and Carter County area when you were called out to help?
Gary did.
And when Gary was no longer working?
I didn't go out there as much. I was told by several municipalities, Eagle Beach, that if I had not came back to this area when I did, they were going to get their
Objection,
own trucks.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I objected on basis of hearsay.
I would agree that's hearsay and should be excluded.
Good.
Can I?
Yes. Okay, sustain the objection, could you agree?
So just try not to say anything, any words that other people said.
I can give you names and they will tell, they can tell you.
That's okay, we understand, yeah. Just some rules that we have to follow in the hearing. When, after Gary left and it was just you, were you able to do this service by yourself?
I was until the garbage truck started breaking down. I had one, unit 10 was sat for about a year. I told them that the arm wasn't working properly. When I first got in that truck, when I started, it was supposed to super compact, and it didn't, because I had run the cities and you push a button and then it packs by itself so you get more in there. Well, this truck didn't. So I learned that I had to unplug the sensor, run it so I could get a super pack on it, plug the sensor back in, and continue on my way. Otherwise, I would have to unload early and then go back on my route. If I did it at least once or twice that way during the route, I could get the whole route in without having to unload. Because to unload is roughly half hour, 45 minutes time to go out where you're at to the landfill, unload, come back and go back to where you left off.
And when you say unit 10 sat for 1 year.
That was the newer one.
What year was it sitting?
They're both over 20, they're both right around 20 years old, so.
So, no, but how long, you said it sat for 1 year, was that in 2023?
Around 2022, 2023, somewhere in there, and in that time I used unit 9. And then it started having issues, when I started using 9. It had a gash on the bottom of the refuse body, about 3-4 feet long, the bottom of it. So anytime that ram would go back and forth, garbage or whatever else would fall out the bottom.
Did you report these concerns?
And it got towards the very end, it started puking out oil. I have pictures of me stopping at Runnings to get more oil, and there's a huge oil puddle underneath the truck, from in front of the truck to about halfway behind of oil. And wherever I stopped, and I shut the truck off, I shut the truck off. And there are several places out there by the equipment, Highway 12 equipment. There, if you look out there, still this day, there's still a spot where you can see where the oil dripped. Where I stopped, the oil just, and then out by Bill Wyrick's turnoff.
Did you report the oil?
Oh, yes,
Oil pump.
yes.
And what was your supervisor's response?
Just add more oil. Just add more oil. Get your route done.
Did you explain the
Yes, I had.
seriousness and the,
Yes, yep. I had 10 gallons of oil with me, and I made it out from Bill Wyrick's turnoff. I made it out to Miller Repair, which is just a hair bit on the Cabin Creek Road, a couple miles. And when I got there, I was out. There was no oil in the dipstick. So I got some oil from him so I could at least get it out of his driveway into his shop.
what type of oil was this?
Engine oil 1040.
Were there any other leaks on that truck?
There was always something, seemed to, when it got cold, there always seemed to be something wrong with the controls. When you had the air or hydraulic controls taken apart, you replaced the rubber in there, but the bore and then that valve itself, the brass valve, was
That what now?
the air valve, air hydraulic valve. When they took the spool out, it was kind of, pit is not the right word, it had lines in it from dirt or whatever going through there, so I just would kind of bypass that.
And were there any hydraulic issues?
I try to replace the hoses when I, when they had one break or whatever. Those usually you was able to get them, pretty quickly.
Were there ever instances when a truck was out of commission?
How do you mean?
Inoperable.
Well, unit 10 sat, and then unit 9, when I got it out to Miller's, I couldn't run it no more. And so I think it's still sitting there to this day. I know my wife, I was told to go out there and see if I could retrieve that truck.
Who told you that?
Yes. The equipment manager, I can't think of his name. And to go pick it up, and when I went out there, I stopped at the shop to let them know what was going on. And the mechanic told me that that truck cannot leave the property, so it's like, well, okay. So then I left and go back home.
So,
Use my own personal vehicle to go out there.
so the G&G equipment manager directed you to go and pick up that truck from the repair shop.
Yep.
They would not release the truck to you.
Correct. So that decision was above both of our pay grades, so.
And when that truck, that's unit 9.
Yep.
So unit 10 was not working.
They
And that was
were,
the-
they were trying to get it to go, but they was, the last part of them trying to get it to go is they had me, step on the brakes, lock the brakes, put it in gear, and rev up the truck to get the hydraulics to work. But in the meantime, I have I think it was a right left side tire spinning, even though the brakes were on. And I was down at 4J while this was going on, and I was like, I can't do this. If them brakes let loose, I'm either gonna hit somebody or hit a piece of equipment or a vehicle, and then it's gonna be lucky.
And so somebody at G&G was directing you in how to get the hydraulics to,
Yes, that would
Operate.
have been Sean Macklew's, the
and what did you do in response?
I said, this is dangerous as hell. I said, this is not worth my license. I've had fought with them, one instance with the garbage truck is, most of they didn't know that my wife was going to stage 4 cervical and uterine cancer, and I was at a doctor's appointment in Billings. And I was told to come back to do a garbage route in Wolf Point, which wasn't even my route per se, but they couldn't get a hold of anybody else. And I made the mistake of picking up my phone. So I lost that weekend, came back, did the route, and it got too late to finish it because of the issues with those trucks, and that just started a downhill spiral for me.
And were you, had requested and been approved to
Yes, I
go
had
to
been.
your
Yes,
doctor's appointment?
yes.
Was there ever a time when you, well, so then that was the end of Unit 10 wasn't working very well. Unit 9 now was sitting at Miller's.
Yeah.
Now out of commission.
Out of commission.
And so how did you run your garbage route at that point?
Then they had me, then either Sean or the manager, Josh Johnson, they would have me come up, they'd call and say, hey, you need to go up to Glendive and pick up unit, one of the, I don't know the units for up there, a rear load garbage truck. And then I go up there. There's times I had to use my own personal vehicle to get it. My wife would take me up there, then we drove back. Otherwise, I take unit 20, the blue Kenworth up there, bring the truck back, do my garbage route. Now I'm doing this by myself. And I've got short route, roughly 100, 109 customers, long routes, about 120, 130. And we have the tall, I think they're 900 gallon ones that they consider. They're about as tall as I am, so I have to now reach into these cans by hand to unload them, or else try to tip them over. If they're all loose stuff in there, I have to leave them.
And so by a rear load garbage truck, are you describing a pickup truck?
No, this is a truck, that's a total entire, see like mine, down here were sidearms ones. And the older school way is rear loads where you just got a little household garbage can, you pick it up, throw it in there and empty it out.
And is that what they were
That's what
using in
that's what
Glendive?
I was
It's
using.
really important one at a time. Important for her to finish your question, and then you answer.
Okay,
So you were instructed to take the rear load garbage truck.
Correct.
And that was what was available to you.
yes,
And it's your understanding they were for different size garbage containers.
yeah, it's easier for a rear load to have the smaller cans, whereas the sidearms like the cities have here, the 900 one, you just reach out, either a minute, 5 minutes at the most, pick it up, dump it in, set it back down, and now if you go to the next one. When you're doing it by hand, that time exponentially goes up, depending upon the amount of garbage, if it's loose or not. I was able to get a hold of majority of my customers and say, hey, can you please put your garbage into bags so it makes it easier for me to pick up and throw them away. And a lot of the customers have seen me out doing this by hand. And Fred's even seen me and said, I would not be picking this up by hand. That is BS.
So who, Sean is responsible for equipment,
Yes.
and is he somewhat of a supervisor to you?
He was there for a while after James DeSenko passed. And then there for a while, I really didn't have one. So I had Gary Ergens, and I was there for about 3 years before he got hired on, and then they made him manager, which kind of, they didn't give me the option to decline or to accept. Because like I said, I was doing hook truck, which is roll off, garbage route, and porta potties. I also did mail for a while, even though don't have the leg for it. And then I turned that over to the wife so she could do it, so I could keep on with my main focus, which was the.
And is Josh any kind of a manager to you? Or-
Yes, he was. They made him manager at Glendive, and then he became basically my permanent manager when he got installed at Glendive.
And who was responsible to decide what substitute equipment you could use down in the service area?
I think they discussed that between dispatch and Josh. And I'm not sure who else would have been involved in that decision making. Like I said, I got to be master, so I don't know who would have all been involved into that.
And who relayed to you what equipment was available for you
And
to
then
use?
Josh would say, hey, you get this unit, this truck. Or for a couple times I had to go use a pickup and a trailer with sides on it.
And why did you have to use that?
I believe they probably had one truck that was broke down. And then they had their routes, I don't know where they would have been on the routes, but they had like Glendive or say Circle or something to that effect that they were trying to do.
And did they communicate to you, G&G, that was the only thing available at
Yeah.
that time to use?
Yeah, they said, take this truck, so I just took it, it was my job, I'm little man on tour pole, I've been there for quite a while, did what I was told. Did the job the best of my ability that I could with the equipment that I had and the amount of light that I had to deal with.
And did you ever express to them that that equipment wasn't sufficient?
Yes, I had on several occasions. And I said, because I said the garbage cans are as tall as me. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to straight up, there's gotta be. That's not a very efficient way to do things.
Who did you express concern?
To Josh, to Mr. Makowitz.
And
I just continued to do my job.
did they address your concerns or provide you with alternate equipment?
No, not even so much as help.
Did you ask them for help?
At the time, I don't know if I would have received it, so I just did it my own.
Have you ever been injured on the job?
I was,
When was that?
and roughly 2 years ago, I was working up there by Kinsey with a rear load garbage truck. The garbage truck winch wasn't working, so we had to pull out the garbage by hand. Those bigger dumpsters, the old school dumpsters, I want to call them. I had the lid over center, thought it was enough to be over center because it was up against a tree. And the lid come back down and put it in the bone and it cut the tendon where it transfers from the tendon into muscle. They cut that. And so I can do this, but I can't do it with this one.
And did you receive medical treatment for that?
Yeah, I drove to Glendive Medical Center and got it stitched. I called the appropriate people when it happened, got pictures and that.
Who were the appropriate people?
It would have been Lisa Plagmeyer. She was human resource, I might have her title,
For G&G?
yes.
And you were reporting a work injury?
Yes, Josh Johnson called him, called the Axiom.
Who's Axiom?
That's the medical people that they go through when they make the decision of, do I go there, do I go elsewhere, kind of a triage kind of thingy.
Do you know if your employer reported this to workman's comp?
I do not, they said that they would pay for it. And then going through further medical doctoring or whatever, I went through Orthro, Montana. They had an office at the Mile City Holy Rosary Hospital. And I asked them about it. And they asked for the number from workman's comp. I said I didn't have one. I said my work was gladly paid for it. And they said they did not feel comfortable doing it that way, but I don't know through them negotiating or whatever, I don't know. I managed to go in and see the doctor ultimately, and then I went and seen the surgeon. And I could have the surgery, but it would more likely wouldn't do anything because of where it is. And the length of time. Because I waited for the swelling to go down to make sure it wasn't from the swelling, roughly about a week. And then I said, hey, I can't move my finger. I mean, I could grip with it good, but as far as if you want me to type, that's.
And so do you know to this day whether you have a workman's comp number or
I do
any
not.
information?
I do.
Do we need a break?
Yeah, let's take a break. Let's do
We do
3 o'clock.
more questions?
I do. I think the court reporter needs a break.
Let's, we'll go off the record and we'll get back together at 3 p.m. sharp here. And Ms. Wasman, you can continue your question.
Thank you. Did you have to take time off for your injury?
I think maybe for the initial doctor's appointment, but otherwise, I think maybe a day or two, and then I just went right back to it.
Did you ever have to take time off for follow-up doctor visits on it?
Just like once or twice, like I say, I already do my infusions myself, so I tried to get them at the same day, so I wouldn't miss a whole lot of work.
Okay. So not that you know of,
Yeah,
never had to use vacation, that, okay. Did any customer complaints ever did customers come directly to you?
there have been some, there's maybe a few times, but I always, told my customers, I said, if like on a garbage can or whatever garbage out, I says, if I miss you, call me, I'll come back right away. And I'll get it, and not a big deal, even if I have to do it on my own time, I'll gladly come do it.
Did you ever pass along any complaints or?
Yes, I had, but then a lot of them said that they said, well, they did call, prior to them telling me that and then they'd say, well, I couldn't get a hold of anybody, do we have any more numbers? So then I would pass along the numbers that I had, good, bad, or different, I would pass on the numbers that I had, that they didn't have. And I says, well, this is what I have. I'll let the people up the chain know.
What was the nature of people's complaints?
A lot of them said that they didn't like their billing, like they would get a bill and they had already paid.
I'm gonna object
There
that
was some
what the customers are speaking to is the content of their complaints is hearsay, they're not here to testify. We have had plenty of customers testify.
Response?
So I was trying to ask the nature of the complaints and not the specific complaints and whether he passed those along. So I'm not trying to ask for hearsay.
I'd be satisfied if it was rephrased, I guess.
Okay.
Could you answer the question that she's asking, just the question?
That, yes, I did pass along with the any plans, I passed the numbers that I had to them so they could try to alleviate what they had their issues with or whatever.
Thank you. Looks like an answer.
Did you pass along complaints and concerns to your supervisors?
I did.
Okay. Were there any instances where you had concerns about operating an unsafe vehicle?
Like I said, Unit 9 and Unit 10 all have their unusual quirks. Unit 10, when Gary was running it, he got trained, and I think Fred can vouch for this. When you start to have issue with hydraulics, you just let go of the controls. Am I right? You just let them go. Well, with this particular truck, if you let the controls go, it just amplified the problem. So you had to, when it started to shake, the arms started to move up and down. You had to, try to feather the control to bring it back in control. But if you just let go, like a majority of the equipment operators are trained, it just makes things worse. I don't know if that truck has an accumulator on it to render that. I don't know why that particular truck did that. It did that when I first started. I figured it was just a quirk of the truck per se. And when you're using the trucks with the arms, it takes a knack to where you grab the can and tip it up. If you don't have the correct, or if you let loose of it, you lose the can and the hopper. And then you gotta shut your truck down, pull out all the safety deals, and have your truck not running, then climb into the hopper to push the can, to get the can out. But that took, a little bit of finesse to do that. If you grab it too hard, especially in the winter, the cans would crack and break. So there was kind of a fine line, especially in the winter, to where either you crush the can or it falls in the hopper.
So you testified, I think, that you worked up until about February 12th,
Yes,
2024?
yes.
And what was the reason for you quitting?
I just couldn't do it anymore. I felt personally that the way the equipment was, I was told I got written up because I couldn't do the job. And then with the incident with my wife not being able to, for her doctor's appointment, finish that all off properly. And then just the pay. I mean, there was a day where I worked 17 and a half hours. I asked for a motel room. And I was in Glendale at the time. Never got one. One wasn't provided for me, and of course I was broke, so I couldn't pay for it for myself. So I had to travel from Glendive back to Baker, and by the time I got back, I had 17 and a half hours, which DOT you're only supposed to have 14.
Who did you ask to?
I called Sean Mackwoods.
And he was the one that told you no?
Basically, yeah,
Regarding the write-up you discussed, you said you couldn't do the job.
yes.
What were the circumstances of that?
Truck was, I believe I was running unit 9 at the time. It just like it too much oil, too fast. I was trying to keep the motor from grenading. Once it got low in oil, I just went into low power mode. And that was it.
Did you call your supervisor
Oh, yes,
to let him know the problem?
Yeah, let him know what's going on.
And you said you were not able to complete?
Yes.
And in response, you were written up?
Yep.
Were you ever written up any other times?
Once when I wrecked, there's a few others, I don't have them on me, what they were for exactly.
Were you ever given any corrective action, goal setting, training, or assistance after your write-ups?
For the truck one, no. I think my first one I did. I know that they had an incentive program for a certain amount of bins in a week. I think it was 20. I knew I could never reach that goal because I had a garbage route, so I was never gonna reach the 20 bins a week.
So when you say bins, you mean roll-offs?
Yes, roll off, yes. I was never gonna reach it, which was fine. Then I think the absolute last straw was I had a day, it was a really, really good day on roll off. I think I had like 8 or 9 roll offs done in a day. And since our landfill is open from 7:30 to 3:30, I was never told if that was a record for us or not. I didn't really even get so much as an attaboy for it. And after that, I basically was deflated.
When you quit, what was your rate of pay?
25.
Did you ever ask for a raise?
On several occasions.
Did you ever ask Mr. Desmond
I
for a
did,
raise?
and I was, I think it was the second, I think the touchdown meeting or beginning of the year meetings. And I was told, as long as I'm working there, you will never get a raise. I mean, not even cost of living or raise. It's the only place, this is the only place I worked and had not ever received a raise.
Did you have any other concerns about your employment?
No, not really too much. I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed my customers. I mean, most people who know me know I try to be a people pleaser. I think that's what would come up in one of our deals that we did. Dispatch, there's dispatchers that I had a who with. I enjoyed working with them. Being there in Baker, was always felt like the redheaded stepchild. Couldn't get things done, whatever. And was always seemed to be the last to receive things, whether it be tools or whatnot, or trucks.
Did you ever have any incidents where you damaged?
Yeah, I backed into a customer's trailer.
When was that?
I'm not sure when, it was probably about a year or two ago. Chris Jurgensen trailer.
And were you written up for that?
I was, because I didn't report it that very day.
Why didn't you report it that day?
I guess I don't even remember the reason why I did. I had a lot going on that day, and was just trying to work through my shift, and I think it was just, it was like a bad Monday. I think I even offered to pay out of my pocket if I had to.
I don't have any other questions.
Ms. Tavis, you may do your cross-examination.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinoche. Good afternoon, Mr. Eckman. You currently live in Plevna, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you use garbage service in Plevna?
Do I have garbage service? We go to the, like Baker, they have a container site that we use and we're charged for.
So you self-haul, is that correct? Would that
What's
be-
this?
You self-haul your garbage?
Yes. And I can bring it to Baker, since I have since I have a property in Baker and per the rules of Baker, I can take my garbage to any dumpster and deposit it there. Doesn't matter if it's G&Gs or if it's Spiffy's or if it's the Catholic churches, it doesn't matter because I have a property there, I can dump my garbage into there.
To save time, could I ask you just to answer the question, because we're really short on time? Thank you.
Prior to working for G&G, I believe you said you worked for the city of Baker?
Yep.
How long did you work for Baker?
Year and a half, 2 years, I believe. I quit because their insurance kicked me off for my medication.
They no longer covered your medication?
Yeah, they just dropped the whole entirely.
And so did you work for Baker immediately preceding getting hired at G&G?
I started at the city and then I went to G&G.
Yes. Did you have any jobs in between the city and G&G?
I believe I did, but it's been a little while, I don't.
You have a CDL.
Yes,
Have you worked in the garbage industry other than working for Baker and G&G?
no,
How much did you make when you worked for the city of Baker or town of Baker?
I believe it was right around $21.
Did you retain a good working relationship with city personnel after you left?
Yes, I did.
When you began working at G&G, you said you did some porta potty work?
Yes.
And did they subsequently remove the porta potty business from the Baker office?
No, I know they had trouble getting somebody to fill that spot. Cause I did it when Bob Wood was there, then Bob Wood left. And then they either had somebody at Dickinson come do it or out of South Dakota.
At the time you quit G&G, were they still
They were
servicing
still
porta potties
leader.
out
Well,
of,
that time,
were they still servicing porta potties out of the Baker office?
At times, if they weren't busy with their garbage stuff, they'd have somebody come down. And Glendale has, I think, one guy that could do it to where Dickinson has, I think, over 5 guys. I think there's over 5 guys in South Dakota. So I mean, it's.
But porta potties didn't remain part of your job duties?
No, I did that for a short little while to help fill in. Once you get over the initial duty of it, it wasn't a bad gig.
Looking at 2023, how many hours per week did you work for G&G?
I'm not sure.
Did you typically put in a 40-hour work week?
Yeah, easily. There's times where it was more. The winter, expect to be less. That's just the nature of how things are. Winter's usually a lot slower for everybody in general.
Okay, but you were working 5-day work weeks?
Yep, 5 days, 1 week, 4 days, another week, because of the short weeks, I had an infusion I had to go do.
Okay, so you would take off 1 day every other week?
Yep.
Throughout 2023?
Yep. since I got hired.
Okay, for the entire time?
Yep.
Okay. Did G&G work with you on that?
For the most part, they did. I had it to Fridays, so with my medication, at times it would leave me tired. I try to do it on Fridays, so I'd have the weekend to recover. And then it got to where I don't know who was per se complaining that I took every other Friday off, but I went and moved it to Tuesday to accommodate, to do every other Tuesday then.
Why did you take the job with G&G?
Well, I had lost insurance through the city, and I needed insurance. And at the time, I didn't have it was either SSI or SSD at the time. So I needed to be able to pay for my medication.
And so G&G offered insurance,
Yes,
and they offered you said you got paid $25 an hour?
Yep.
So you made more money than at the city?
yes.
You described that you quit in the first part of this year, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
After you quit, did you try to tell G&G that you had been fired?
And yes,
Okay, thank you.
but I did put in my 2 weeks notice and then they took a week.
Were you paid for the full 2 weeks?
I was.
Did you, after you put in your notice, did you call and tell a customer that the new guy didn't know what was going on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We had some testimony from the town of Ekalaka that I believe in December or January, there was a truck that came down to their yard, turned around and left without picking up a dumpster. Was that on your watch?
No, I don't believe it was. No. So you could take an empty container there and you bring a full one back.
Okay. Was there anyone else running trips down to Ekalaka at that time?
If Gary was working, he would do it. But if it was just me, then I would go do it unless they had somebody like, say, from South Dakota come up and do it. I think I did it once or twice.
At G&G, you talked to Ms. Wasner about the dispatch system. Do you recall that? Were you instructed to check off jobs as you completed them?
Yeah, if you get time because you had to fill out, I guess it'd be the paperwork part of it.
Did you consistently do that?
Tried my best, but I knew because I wrote things down to where I could remember how they were.
But did you use the checkoff system consistently
At the end of the day, I would.
every day?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall an incident where you caused $11,000 in damage to a G&G truck in October of 2022?
That would have been when that truck got wrecked. 12.
When you damaged a Denbury Resource Power Pole too then?
Yes,
Did you report that to G&G right away?
I did. I had called the sheriff and I called Mr. James DeSanko.
Did you receive a citation in relation to that?
I did.
What was the citation for?
It was a careless.
Was there a finding that you had fallen asleep at the wheel?
They never said that, thought that I had fallen asleep at the wheel. They
Nobody
just
told
give
you
me a-
that?
They just give me a careless.
Did you contest that?
I did. But per the way the laws were written and to what, was explained to me, basically irregardless, because I knew how the truck was, I took it out anyway, and so I was still on the hook for it irregardless.
You said you hit a trailer, would that have been in November of 2023?
Probably,
You did not report this incident to G&G, did you?
not right away, no.
You did report it eventually?
Yeah, but a few days, a week later, I don't remember which it was, but
And did you approach the customer's boss to ask him to not report it to G&G?
no, I offered that if whatever it was, I offered it out of my own pocket to pay for it.
So you didn't tell him, ask him to not report it to G&G? Going back to the software system, did it give you directions on what order you were to pick up trash?
Yes,
Did you follow that order on the software system?
majority of it I did.
Sometimes no.
No, because like I said, they're not familiar with the area. Can I ask her a question? What?
You talked about a job site injury, that was about 2 years ago, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is Axiom?
That is who G&G went through. It's kind of a triage thingy. We have a card in our wallet so that say if any injuries were to happen, after you get a hold of G&G, the appropriate channels there, you're to call it Axiom. And
So
they
did you-
basically triage you.
Did you follow that protocol?
Yes, I did.
Did you have any follow-up requests from HR for further information?
I did, but I
Did you comply
couldn't,
with those?
I gave them what I had. Like one of the things they were wanting to know the cost of like a surgery. But I couldn't give them the cost of the surgery because the plate where I went to didn't have the estimate.
You said that you told customers to call you if there was a missed pickup, correct?
Yep.
Did you get calls about missed pickups?
Every once in a great while, I would.
Did you go back and pick them up?
Oh, yeah, on my own time.
There was testimony prior to your testimony regarding a lot of missed pickups over the past few years. Would that have been on your watch?
It would have been, but like I said, if a piece of equipment is not working, how can I go pick it up? If I have to do it by hand,
You said you gave out numbers to people when they had customer service or billing issues that they raised to you. And you said you let people up the chain know. Who was that?
I would call my manager, Josh, when he was installed. Otherwise, I would send it off to dispatch. I would text dispatch and say, hey, this is what's going on. And so on and so forth.
No further questions. Thank you.
Let's go to commissioner questions. Commissioner Boothcheck, any questions?
No.
No questions.
No questions for me, any recross?
No redirect.
No redirect. Would you like to permanently excuse the witness or temporarily? Oh, sure.
You mentioned one of the people that worked with you is Bob Wood.
Yes,
Does he also know that Bob Wood?
yes.
Okay. Permanently.
Any recross?
Oh,
I
that's
don't
right.
need him to
because he
spell the
asked.
No redirect,
All right, permanently or temporarily?
temporarily.
Okay, sir, thank you. You may go. And you may call it.
Thank you.
It's Robert.
Just
No, that's-
I would call Dennis Twett.
Okay. Sir, I need you to raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
sure try.
Thank you. You're away.
Thank you. Could you state your name for the or for the commission?
Dennis Twett, TWEDT,
Where do you live?
Baker, Montana,
How long have you lived there?
39.
And what is your occupation?
We're an operator of a trucking and crane company,
What is the name of that company?
Mitchell's Crane and Trucking.
And what type of business is that?
We have winch trucks. We cater to the small service rigs in the area for the two companies that are major in this part of the country. We move rig equipment, we haul pipe, we haul sucker rods, cherry picker trucks, trailers, and we got two bigger cranes. We do pumping unit work, service work, that kind of thing.
Does your company require garbage service?
Yep.
What type of service do you need?
It's usually a dumpster full a week, a small dumpster full.
When you say dumpster, is it the,
Like the city ones,
like the city, thank you. And do you currently use a garbage service?
Yep.
What company?
G&G.
And are you on a regular scheduled pickup?
Yep.
And who owns the container that you have?
I'm not sure if we own it or they do. I think maybe we do. I'm not sure.
Okay,
Probably we do because it hasn't got a lid.
do you know when it is scheduled to be collected?
Yeah, usually every week they pick it up.
Do you know what day of the week?
I don't pay attention to that. So it's bit-
Have you experienced any problems with the service?
In the past, yeah, they had some terrible times with equipment. Got backed up probably 3 weeks, and we have our own metal dumpsters, so we was able to get by without a bunch of griping and concerns. I don't know, it just, we may do, but if we wouldn't have the extra space, we would have inside shop or whatever. It's during the winter time.
Did you ever have any other issues?
No, just leaking oil. We live on a hill up there, and EPA is on us at least a couple times a year for checking drainages.
And so your testimony is that one of their trucks leaked oil?
Yep.
On your property?
Yep, and I'd scoop it up, put it in the dumpster.
When did you notice these problems?
And
A couple of years ago?
Yeah.
The oil problem and also the pickup problem?
about the same time, yeah, there's having equipment troubles. absolutely.
Did you report those problems to G&G?
I did not.
Have you ever had any problems with billing?
I don't.
Do you have any other options for garbage hauling that you're aware of?
Yeah, we haul our own garbage out once in a while to the landfill, paid by the pound.
Has the service gotten better since you observed some problems?
Since they've gotten, yeah, and I will, if we're fixing equipment, getting what they need, after threatening they could lose their business, it's gotten better. But, they went through a lot of hardship and they went through a lot of good help, the way I see it. Small community, everybody knows everybody, and we try to take care of each other. It's extra, I don't have to say, but just, it's reality.
And by threatening to lose their business, do you mean that application that was filed in front of the Montana Public Service Commission and why we're here? Do you know Fred Varner?
Yep.
Have you had an opportunity to work alongside or with Fred?
Yep.
Did you have any observations about Mr. Varner's equipment?
It's always in top shape, and he treats himself good.
Do you support Fred's application or Southeast Garbage's application for a Class D certificate of public convenience and necessity?
Do I approve of that?
Do you support it?
Do I support it? Well, they're doing our garbage, so whatever you want to look at it that way.
So G&G is currently doing your garbage, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Fred or Southeast Garbage, being Fred and Barry and Chad, are requesting an or a certificate to be allowed to do that.
Mhm.
Are you supportive or in favor of the
I'm
commission?
supportive of them taking it over.
Okay.
Because it's local and we know Fred and family.
Thank you, I don't have any other questions.
Ms. Pettis? Cross examination.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenichi. And Mr. Trent. Do you live at the same location as Mitchell's Crane and
I
Trucking?
do not know.
Is your home in Baker?
Yep.
Okay, and so do you have garbage service through the town of Baker?
City,
City of Baker, sorry. And with your business, have you ever had equipment break down?
Yep.
Can it take a while to get parts?
sometimes
How long can it take?
6 weeks for a transmission for one of my cranes.
And did you say you have metal containers?
We have our own containers.
Okay, and do you manufacture them or do you purchase them?
No, we just built them and we put like our tires in it, that kind of stuff. Lumber from the pipe racks, plastic strips from the sucker rods that we have, that kind of stuff. We don't normally put garbage in them.
Okay. But you manufacture those yourselves out there?
Yes,
Do you have employees?
Yep.
How many employees do you have?
10,
Do you ever have trouble with employees?
sure,
You ever had to discipline an employee?
sure,
You ever had to fire an employee?
yep.
Is it hard to get help sometimes?
In a small community, it sure is. We have to outsource it. Sometimes I got a couple out of Glendive that drive back and forth every day. Out of Ecolog, All City, you know, it's expensive.
Do your employees,
Everybody in this community knows that.
does your employees all have CDLs?
Yep, except for maybe 2.
That's a smaller pool of applicants, I guess.
Yeah, and now your CDLs is a real hassle because of laws. This government has made.
They've made it a lot more involved process.
Yeah,
To obtain a
absolutely.
CDL.
7 weeks of, no less than 7 weeks of school to anywhere from, it costs the employer, if you've got your employee doing the school, costs you between $14,000 to $19,000 to get that CDL now.
You stated the G&G's service has been better this year?
The last few months, absolutely.
When did it start to get better? Can you pinpoint it any better?
I didn't pay that much attention to the timing.
Do you know Mr. Efta?
I do. Used to be one of my employees,
How long ago was he your employee?
quite a few years ago.
Did he leave voluntarily?
I think it got slowly, went somewhere else. We went through some highs and lows,
You and Corey, or the business jet?
both.
What highs and lows did you and Corey come through?
I mean, from times in the patch where it gets slow, and after a while, you only pay so much shop time, you gotta let them collect unemployment or go somewhere else.
Okay, fair point. You run your business as a for-profit entity, right? And the amount of costs you can incur directly relate to how much you charge. And if you're not making money, you can't pay an employee, right?
Do they?
Or you let them go if you're not making money.
We, try to run a tight schedule on making a profit. And you have to manage tightly. It's inflation in the last couple of years, since COVID especially. It's not easy, and to pass that on to customers. It's hard to do.
Sure, but your costs have gone up in the last few years since COVID, haven't they?
Yep.
So you're trying to find efficiencies in your business? Do you know your new driver for G&G?
No.
Have you seen him out there?
Yeah, I've seen it, but I haven't done.
Okay, have you had any issues with his service?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Ms. Wassner was asking you about your relationship with Fred Varner, and you mentioned the word family. What did you mean by that?
Oh, it's just like everybody knows everybody. I call that family. That's my slang saying for family.
Okay, small town relationships,
Right.
is that fair?
But as far as me going out and having dinner with him, no.
How did you learn about Southeast's application?
How do I feel about what?
How did you learn about Southeast's application?
Through talk in town.
Were you approached about providing an affidavit in support of that, or did you approach them?
Yeah. Let's approach and see if I would come in and say, in front of the commission, what's the actuality that's been going on in the past. And or service that we had for quite a long time.
And did you discuss what services Southeast plans to provide with Mr. Varner? So you don't know what options they would be giving for you?
No. So you say no?
No, I don't.
And if Southeast is granted a permit, do you plan to use Southeast's service?
Of course.
Does that depend on what price they offer it at?
Well, it's pretty good. You only got, whoever's got that is, it's the law that they got a whole garbage. I mean,
If G&G is still offering service and Southeast is offering service, will you use Southeast no matter the price?
I don't know. You just have to be determined at that time.
Sure, depends on the economics at that moment.
Sure.
No further questions. Thank you very much.
We'll go to commission questions. Commissioner Vukacek, any questions?
No questions.
Does my attorney have any questions?
No questions.
And no questions. Anything on redirect?
No redirect,
Would you like to permanently excuse or temporary?
permanently, thank you.
Sir, you may go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Swanson, you call it your next witness. Or break it. How many witnesses you got planned?
My help has left me for the day. She had to leave. I need to check to see if my witness is actually here.
Okay.
I have one, possibly two.
Check, see what's out there.
Yeah, may I?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's
Let's go off the record.
446. That makes sense. We may then proceed to opening statements. Maybe not by the parties, we'll figure that out as we go. But we'll try and use the time with bus bar.
Because we don't know what tomorrow we'll drink.
Swanson, you don't have a witness right now.
She's not here.
We'll stay off the record then.
Yeah, I
He doesn't always agree with me.
All right, we'll go back on the record. It's 3:55. It looks like our witness is here. We were waiting for it. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Thank you. I would call Jennifer Wheeler.
Okay.
I'll have you hold up your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. You may be seated. Ms. Wasman, you're a witness.
Thank you. Could you state your name for the court or the commission, please?
Jennifer Wheeler,
And how do you spell your first name
Jennefer,
and last name?
WHEEL,
Where do you live?
you're bigger.
And do you live just outside of town?
Yes,
How long have you lived there?
14 years.
How long have you been a resident or lived in the area?
Life,
What is your current occupation?
fairgrounds manager.
And is that for the county?
Yes.
Did you previously work for G&G Garbage?
Yes,
When was that?
December of 2017 to March of 2019.
Do you recall your rate of pay at that time?
I'd like to object to any testimony regarding to her work at G&G just based on relevance. She's testified she hasn't worked there in over 5 years.
And if I may, one of the elements is whether they can and will provide the service. It seems by the line of questioning, they're saying it is a recent and particular employee problem. And under the same owner, I'm just eliciting testimony that it is a continual problem.
I would say that perhaps that's a better topic for redirect if she wishes. We haven't brought up that testimony in our direct case. However, at this time, I think an employee's recollections from 5 years ago aren't relevant to whether G&G is able and willing to offer the services, which are the questions before the commission in this hearing.
We're gonna overrule the objection. I think it leads to something.
What was your rate of pay, if you recall?
Around $17 an hour.
And when you were employed, how many staff members worked in the Baker office?
Started with 3 of us.
And by 3 of us, you mean 3 office personnel?
2 office, 1 driver.
So 2 office, 1 driver. Who was your supervisor?
Christina Cobb.
What was her title?
Exactly sure. She did accounts receivable.
What was your position?
Started in accounts payable, payroll, and onboarding of employees.
Onboarding of employees.
Who was the owner of the company?
Many investors, I guess, but Mike was our director.
Mike Desmond?
Yes,
And you said direct report?
that's who we talked to.
And do you know his title?
CEO.
Yeah, maybe speak up a little bit so everybody can hear.
Yep.
Thank you.
When did you end employment with G&G?
March of 2019.
And how was your employment ended? Did you choose that or?
I chose that, yes.
So you quit. And what was your rate of pay when you quit?
I read it the same.
Were your reasons for quitting work related?
Yes.
So what were those work related reasons?
Mostly I didn't want to work as many hours as I was having to put in to keep up with it. And I guess being told that you were not doing your job well enough all the time
By who?
by Mike.
Were you given the tools that you needed to do your job?
Yes,
Were you given training?
some, yes.
Did the office personnel handle any of the dispatching of the drivers?
Not in our office.
And did the office personnel while you worked there receive any customer phone calls or complaints, concerns?
We would get phone calls, yes.
And when you received those concerned phone calls, what did you do with that information?
So then we call over to the other office in Dickinson. Find out why something wasn't on the schedule or whatever. The case may be, whatever the concern was.
Did you ever request additional help or additional staff for the workload?
We did, and we did get a little extra, but they never stuck around long.
What type of assistance were you provided? How many hours? Sure, I would strike that. Are you testifying that they added a staff person?
They added one more.
And was that part-time or full-time?
I think they were about part-time and worked about 30 hours.
And you said they didn't stick around. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, they weren't there when school got out, they went home because they had kids and stuff, so that was there.
So the schedule,
That was their schedule, was 8:30 to 3 or whatever it was.
did that alleviate the amount of hours that you were asked to work?
No, it seemed like we all still were working many hours.
Were you working more than 40 hours?
Yes,
Were you expected to work more than 40 hours?
the job wasn't done.
Were you doing accounts payable and payroll for just the Baker area?
The entire
And when you say the entire
company,
company,
Dakota Dumper,
I didn't hear that last part.
Dakota Dumper and G&G Garbage.
and how many employees was that in total?
I don't know, there was so much rollover in the dumper part of it, I don't know how many. At a given time there were.
So you're, by rollover, you mean turnover?
Yes,
And whose business is Dakota Dumper?
it's part of it also.
Okay. Do you know if Mike had a position in that company, Mr. Desmond?
It was part of that too.
Were you ever given additional training or feedback other than what you had provided? The statements that Mr. Desmond had said to you? And did you provide notice when you quit?
Yes,
And was that like a 2-week notice?
yes.
And how did your exit occur? Did you fulfill your 2 weeks?
Yes.
Where you live, do you use G&G service?
Yes.
What type of garbage service do you have out there?
80, what are they, 80-pound or 80-gallon dumpster? I don't know what size they are.
So are they the dumpsters that look like the ones in the city?
Yes, yeah.
And black?
Yeah.
Color. Do you own your container or does G&G?
Yes, I bought the container and the holder for it when we moved to Roxy Lane.
And how long has G&G been your service provider?
Since we moved out.
Oh, it's 2016. And how often is that collected?
Weekly, hopefully.
So it's scheduled weekly?
Yes.
Have you experienced problems with the garbage service?
We've had it not picked up weekly many times.
When
I've
did
had it destroyed, my dumpster destroyed by the truck and left.
when was that?
A couple of years after we moved in.
And when did you observe that the garbage wasn't picked up on a regular basis?
Mostly this last year. But, I mean, and there's occasions, but I also know weather and certain things do happen.
Was there a time when it got worse?
This last year, I mean, probably the last, whatever, 8 months maybe.
Okay. Did you call about your about the sporadic service?
I did try once, but I never did get anywhere on the, whatever the phone number to get into anybody for customer service.
You were never able to talk to anyone?
No.
And dumpster was destroyed. Did you call G&G?
Yep, I had called them and asked for a replacement because I could see completely through it.
And
That took quite a few calls to get that taken care of.
and did you exclusively speak with some sort of customer service representative? And eventually you were given a replacement?
Finally, yes,
How long would you say that it took?
few months.
Did you ever have any issues with billing?
Yes.
What were those issues?
I get extra bills, they don't know if they've sent me one, I get another one saying that I haven't paid it. Go back, find them, and they are paid.
How long have those issues been going on?
Quite a few years.
And have you had to call customer service in regards to those issues?
Yep.
And were they able to address your concerns?
Yeah, that we usually get the same person, but
And how does that affect you in having to straighten that out?
takes a lot of time to.
In your experience, has G&G consistently met your needs for service?
Yes, probably other than the last year or so when they weren't dumping very often.
Do you know Fred Varner
Yes,
and Barry and Chad?
yes,
How is it that you know them?
lived here all my life.
It's been a standard answer. Do you support Southeast Garbage's application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity?
Absolutely.
And if they're granted that application, would you consider using them for service?
Yes,
Were you the fair manager in 2022?
no,
And I have no further questions.
Travis, your witness to cross-examine.
Commissioner, good afternoon, Ms. Wheeler. So looking at your testimony, you worked for G&G for about 15 months, is that correct?
Yep.
And you made $17 an hour during that time? Did you also get benefits?
yes,
Did you get insurance?
Yeah.
Paid vacation?
Yep.
Were you ever written up while you were an employee of G&G?
I know.
So when you said that you were told you weren't doing your job well enough, there were no write-ups?
No, it's just a daily, when we had our weekly reporting, that's just how he talked to us.
And so you said when you were working too many hours, you requested additional help and a 30-hour-a-week person was hired?
That was hired, and then we had, Christina had left, and before she left, we hired that person, the 30-hour-a-week person.
So you had two full-time people and added a 30-hour-a-week person and then the second full-time person left?
No, we had me and Christina were full-time.
You added on a 30-hour-a-week person?
Yep, and then the 30-hour-a-week person. And Christina left, which left my position sort of open. We were kind of both filling in accounts payable and doing all the accounts receivable.
Okay. And can you tell me what, Christina was your other coworker when you were hired? When did she leave?
I do not know when she left.
Okay. Do you know when this new person was hired?
The 30-hour-a-week
Yes.
before her exit.
Okay. Was it
Weeks, month maybe.
Was it in 2018 or 2019?
Couldn't tell you.
After Christina left, did the company advertise for her position?
Yes.
You stated you worked more than 40 hours a week
Yes.
consistently?
Yep.
Did you have to get approval for that?
No, just had to get the job done.
Did anyone question your hours?
No.
Coming down, you said you had a dumpster at your home service that was destroyed, did you say?
Yep.
And that took a few months to get a replacement?
Yes,
When was that?
year or two after I moved in, I don't know exactly the time.
After you worked at G&G?
No, before.
Before? So this would have been pre-2017?
Yep.
That this happened?
Yes.
Okay. And then you said you also had to call customer service sometimes about billing, correct?
Yes.
And they resolved their issues after you called?
Yes, but it seems like I have them again.
Then you said you had dumping issues in the last year, is that correct?
Yes.
Missed pickups in the last year?
Yes.
Have you had missed pickups this year?
I don't know, I haven't been able to see them.
Okay, so you're not aware of any missed pickups this year?
Not yet, no. Well, I don't know. No, probably not. At this point.
Do you have any relationship with the Varners outside of knowing them through small town?
No.
How did you come to learn about Southeast Garbage's application for a garbage hauling permit?
We were looking for people to sign a petition for that.
They being the Varners?
Yes, the farmers did.
So how did you hear about it?
They just approached me and asked me.
On the street?
Yep.
Were they going door to door? Or did they come to
I
your
don't
work?
know if they were going door to door. They
Was it at your
just-
work or at your house?
Yeah, they stopped at my work.
So at the time that your bin was destroyed, pre-2017, was the admin for G&G in Baker at that time?
I don't know, I just called the 800 number that,
But it was in Baker in 2017 when you went to work for them?
the customer service? No. Customer
Administrative
service.
staff were in Baker though. Were your staff
Yes,
in
my staff
2017?
was.
Was it in Baker prior to 2017? To your knowledge?
Yes,
Okay.
Christina was there.
Nothing further. Thank you for your time.
We'll go to commission questions. Commissioner Bukacek, any questions?
No question, sir.
All right, I have one, maybe two. Did you take some customer complaints while you were there?
Yeah, we would take those.
Did you receive one where a truck showed up at the transfer site, drove around and did not pick up a container?
I don't recall taking that.
No questions. Okay.
No recross.
No return.
No regret.
No recross, no. Permanently excused or temporarily excused?
Temporarily.
Temporarily excused. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
So we'll dive in.
We won't necessarily. So,
Ms. Wasman, you have another witness you want to call?
Can I just confer with
Nope.
my
Yep.
client very
Go ahead.
Can we go off the record while they're conferring? For to use
We'll go off the record.
the time is 4:20.
4:20.
Who gets you a response.
Okay, so what time is it?
4:23 on my watch.
It's 4:23, we're back on the record. Ms. Wasman, you can call your next witness.
I have no additional witnesses.
Okay. So you wanna go on to your case sheet?
Do you rest your case?
I do rest, thank you.
It would be my preference, given just the late hour of the day, to just start up in the morning and finish everything tomorrow,
What time would you like to start?
whenever it is your commission.
But what, do you think we need 8:30 or do you think 9's okay? 7? He's suggesting 8:30, everybody okay with that? Make him the bad guy.
Yeah.
I was going for 9.
I was going for 5:30.
Well, we need to do it, I would, so, all right, so we agree on 8:30 then?
Show up, then go back home, take care of the kids.
Yeah.
The hearing is in recess for today. For the record, the time is 4:24. And we will resume the hearing tomorrow morning, May 22nd, 2024, at 8:30 a.m. in the Fallon Medical Complex here in Baker, Montana. We are off the record.